Why was she even in that room if no one trusted her? Captain Torres felt the tension before a single word was spoken. 6 men in uniform stood around the glowing satellite map, their faces hard, their eyes moving like blades. They weren't looking for her, not really, not yet. They were waiting for their commander, waiting for orders, waiting for certainty. What they got instead was her. She entered quietly, helmet under her arm, flight suit zipped high against the night air, boots still echoing the tarmac where her bird waited. An Apache crouched in the darkness outside, rotors yawning to life, whispering that the night would not pass quietly. Torres didn't need the introductions. She had been here before, in rooms where silence was heavier than words, rooms where one mistake could hang forever. The men had seen things. They had lost brothers. They had carried weight no one should carry, and now they were supposed to trust it all to her. She knew the look. Not all of them wanted her here. Not all of them trusted a pilot who didn't follow the book, and not all of them believed someone like her, a woman, alone, by missions she didn't talk about, could be the edge they needed tonight. The commander, a thick-necked officer named, glanced up first. His voice was simple, half challenge, half question. "You're our eyes." She didn't hesitate. "I'm your sword." The room shifted, just enough to register the weight of her answer, studied her with a slow nod. He'd heard things, everyone had. They said she flew like she wasn't afraid of dying. They said her Apache didn't just protect, it hunted. Warrant Officer Malik, her co-pilot, followed a step behind. He smirked, throwing out the line he always used when rooms grew cold. "The devil rides shotgun with her so he can learn something." A couple of SEALs chuckled, but not Briggs. He stood with arms folded tight, jaw stiff, refusing to laugh. He looked at her the way some men looked at incoming storms, inevitable, dangerous, and impossible to trust. Torres met his eyes. "Not used to flying with women." Briggs' tone was flat. "Not used to pilots who don't follow rules." She let the silence hang before answering. "That's funny, neither are the Taliban." The pause stretched like wire pulled too tight. For a moment no one breathed, then Commander cut the tension. "Enough, the clock's running." On the map, a red dot blinked between jagged lines. The extraction point, the valley, a place already known for death. "Objective is simple," continued. "We've got a CIA asset compromised, embedded with a local elder. Elder was killed in an IED. Asset's cover is blown. We pull him out before enemy cells close in, windows tight, 15 minutes max on the ground." Torres narrowed her eyes. Simple was never simple. "Resistance?" Malik asked. "Light patrols, maybe a few local fighters, nothing organized." But Shrug told another story. Out here, intelligence was a coin toss. She'd seen too many missions collapse on bad calls. And then he said it. "Air support is thin, you're it." Torres gave a single nod. "Then they're covered." The words left her lips calm, but inside she felt that familiar pull, the silent truth no pilot ever said aloud. Tonight might be the night, and if it was, so be it. Minutes later, the team moved across the gravel airstrip. The SEALs climbed into a already spinning, shadows against the floodlights, silent, focused, unbreakable. Torres and Malik climbed into their Apache. She slid the helmet on, the world narrowing to a green glow as night vision came alive. Her gloved hands wrapped around the cyclic and throttle the way a pianist settles at the keys, not mechanical, not forced, but with a quiet familiarity that spoke of thousands of hours, countless nights, and memories she couldn't shake. The Apache lifted, blades carving the night. The sky opened, black and endless, mountains rising like jagged teeth. Afghanistan stretched out before them, silent, deadly, waiting. Malik checked instruments. She adjusted altitude below, that carried the SEALs deeper into a valley that felt wrong, too narrow, too quiet. The kind of silence that hummed with hidden danger. "This feels wrong," Malik muttered. "It's Afghanistan," Torres said. eyes never leaving the terrain. Everything feels wrong. 2 clicks from the landing zone. Her visor painted the dry riverbed below, jagged cliffs pressing close, shadows shifting where they shouldn't, a place chosen not for safety but for necessity. "This is Bravo Team," the pilot's voice cracked through. "Touching down now, no contact." Torres circled above, scanning ridges, nerves tightening. Something itched at her senses. The rhythm was off. Shadows on the slope moved too still. Heat blooms clustered where no one should be. She keyed her mic. "Got movement, northwest ridge, 3 no, 4 targets." "Static." No reply. The SEALs hit the ground, fanning out, rifles cutting the darkness. Dust swirled from this descent. Briggs reached a slumped figure under a rock ledge. The asset bleeding, broken, barely conscious. "Package secured," Briggs called. Then the night cracked. A single shot, echoing like thunder. Then hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from the cliffs, muzzle flashes like strobe lights tearing the darkness apart. An RPG screamed, slamming into the earth just yards from the landing zone. Fire, dirt, men diving for cover. "Ambush," his voice roared. "Contact high ground, all directions." The jolted upward, pulling away, too hot, too dangerous, leaving the team on the ground. Torres saw it all, every muzzle flash, every spark, every heartbeat of men already fighting for their lives. Her blood turned cold, requesting immediate permission to engage. The delay came like a curse. "Stand by for confirmation." Another barrage tore from the ridge. Negative, standing by was how they died. Her jaw clenched, her voice cut sharp. Standing by is how they die. Without waiting, she angled the Apache down. Malik's tone stayed calm, almost steady. "We're going in, we're ending it." Her fingers slid to the trigger, the system armed, target lock, every nerve alive. Below, the SEALs braced for the impact. Above, the sky screamed. The Apache roared. The chain gun lit the night like fire dragged from the earth itself. Red-hot tracer rounds cut across the ridge. Rock, dirt, and bone shattered as the first pass tore into the slope. Torres dipped low, blades slicing within feet of the cliff face. Enemy fire scattered, panicked, desperate. Malik called targets faster than the computer could process. 3 on the ridge, left slope. Another group, second rise. "Copy," her voice didn't waver. She was locked in, calm, precise. The cannon roared again. Screams, shadows fleeing, men cut down in chaos. Below, Briggs dragged the wounded asset to cover, bullets tearing rock around him. His voice thundered. "Fall back, Torres is burning the sky." And she was. But something gnawed at her gut. The enemy wasn't scattered, wasn't random. They were dug in, waiting, too coordinated, too many at once. This wasn't chance. "They knew our route," Malik said, flipping thermal. "They knew." Torres didn't answer. She couldn't. The fight wasn't over, not even close. Another RPG streaked. Too close, too fast. The Apache shook, alarms screaming red across her dashboard. "Tail boom warning," Malik shouted. "Still flying," she growled, diving again. Below, another truck rattled down a switchback, heavy gun mounted, fire spitting across the slope, reinforcements. Her heart raced, but her voice stayed steady. "Contact north slope, moving fast." "No missiles left that side," Malik said. "Cannon's all I need." The Apache lined nose to target. The 30 chain gun spat fury. The truck exploded in flame, metal scattering down the rocks. The SEALs cheered. Briggs shouted something over the comms. She ignored it. This wasn't glory, this wasn't triumph. This was survival. But even as flames lit the valley, more heat signatures flared, fighters pouring from the caves, more than before, encircling, pressing in. Malik saw it too. "They're cutting off the fallback route." Torres tightened her grip. "Not while I'm in the sky." Fuel 50%, ammo running low, enemies everywhere. And still she stayed. because standing down wasn't an option, not for her, not tonight. What do you do when the whole valley turns against you? For Torres, the question wasn't philosophical. It was survival. They were alive with shadows, muzzle flashes cutting through the black, RPGs streaking white fire across the sky. And beneath it all, 6 men and one half-dead CIA asset were trapped, boxed into a canyon that had been chosen to kill them. "Contacts South Ridge, multiple launchers," Malik called, voice clipped, calm in the way only men in firestorms learn to be calm. "I see them," Torres muttered. The Apache angled left, rotors groaning, hull screaming as another rocket shot past the tail. Warnings bled red across her visor, fuel already at 45%. Ammo racks thinning, no backup inbound, command's order still ringing in her headset. "Abort engagement, clear the zone for ETA 20 minutes. 20 minutes they didn't have to. "Command wants us out," Malik reminded her. Her jaw clenched. "If we pull out, they're dead. You'll take the heat. If I don't, they'll take the graves." She muted the channel. It was her call now, and there was no world where she let them die with her Apache circling overhead. The cannon spat again, rounds tearing a clean scar across the ridge, rocks shattered, fighters screamed. The SEALs below scrambled, moving in short, desperate bursts of cover fire. Briggs dragged the wounded asset, his arms slick with blood, his rifle clattering against stone. "Secondary cover, dry riverbed 20 meters, barked, voice hoarse but commanding, "Move." They sprinted, dust choking the air, enemy fire snapping at their heels. Tor's blood ran hot. She dove low, the Apache skimming so close her downdraft kicked up cyclones of grit. Insurgents ducked, blinded by dust, firing wild. The chain gun raked their positions. For a heartbeat, the battlefield shifted, chaos breaking into fragments. But not enough. Another heat bloom flared south slope. A truck, bouncing hard over loose rock. A mounted DK heavy machine gun already spitting fire. Rounds punched the air around the Apache, tracers cutting far too close. Malik's tone sharpened. "We've got no ordnance left on that vector, nothing but cannon." "Then cannon it is." She rolled the Apache, nose down, throttle wide, fingers locked. The 30 roared, fire stitched across the truck. The gunner vanished in a red spray. The driver lost control, tires shredded. Metal screamed as the truck flipped sideways and tumbled down the slope in a burst of flame. The SEALs roared approval, but Torres didn't hear it. She didn't fly for cheers. She flew for survival. "Fuel at 40, we burn at this pace. We won't make it back." Her eyes never left the, "Then we don't burn, we bleed them out first." Another RPG hissed past, close enough to sear the paint. The Apache rattled. Stabilizers shuddering, warning alarms shrieked again. "Tail boom integrity," Malik started. "Still flying," she snapped, forcing the bird into another dive. This time she didn't aim for precision. This time she dove savage. The cannon thundered, whole walls of rock exploded. Fighters scattered like insects, broken lines fleeing their own ambush. Below, the SEALs froze for half a breath, staring skyward. "She's not covering us," Briggs muttered, blood on his face, eyes wide. "She's clearing the road." And she was. Every dive cut another swath. Every burst shredded another choke point. The fallback route, once a kill box, began to open. Dust thickened the air. Flames lit the valley floor. Screams echoed against stone. But the price was mounting. Fuel dipped to 30%. Ammunition nearly gone, and the enemy wasn't retreating, they were regrouping. Malik's eyes flicked to thermal. Western Ridge, 6 fighters flanking. "Copy." She banked hard right, the Apache dove again. Tracers split the dark, enemy bodies fell still. The voices below grew louder, angrier, more determined. This wasn't disorganized militia fire. This was planned, calculated. She felt it in her bones. "They knew," Malik said again, his voice quiet now bitter. "They knew we were coming." Torres didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her gut already knew the truth. This wasn't a chance encounter. This was betrayal. But betrayal could wait. Because just then, another RPG screamed out of the dark and hit. The explosion slammed into the Apache's tail. The bird bucked, spinning, alarms shrieking. The cockpit a blaze of flashing red. Malik's hand clamped the dash. Rear stabilizers cracked. We can't hold. Torres gritted her teeth, muscles straining against the cyclic. We're not down yet. The Apache wobbled, tail dragging fire through the night. But somehow she leveled it. Somehow she forced it back into the fight. On the ground's voice barked through the static. Air unit, we're moving east. Secondary LZ, 1 click. Can you hold? Her throat tightened. She almost laughed. Hold. That was all she could do. Copy, she said, steady, flat. Watch me. The SEALs staggered forward, carrying the wounded asset. Every step a war, the path east was narrow, carved into the mountain by nothing but time. Too exposed, too fragile, too long. Torres shadowed them, the Apache circling like a hawk with broken wings, smoke trailing from its tail. Fuel 25%. Ammunition almost dry. And still she fought. Another burst cleared the slope ahead. Another dive scattered the ambushers waiting behind rocks. Another roar of the cannon, then silence. Click. Empty. Malik's voice came quiet. We're dry. Torres stared ahead, jaw tight, no missiles, no cannon, only a dying bird and her will. Her voice cut like steel. Then we fight with what's left. What's left? Malik asked. She dipped the Apache lower, so low that dust and rock erupted in a cyclone. Insurgents shielded their faces, stumbled, hesitated. This, she said. Again she dove. Again she roared overhead, not firing but intimidating, not killing but holding. Her silhouette against the fire-scorched sky carried more weight than bullets. Below, the SEALs pressed forward, shouting, Briggs dragging the bleeding asset, their boots pounding the dust. They didn't look back. They didn't have to. The sky was with them. But hesitation only lasted so long. The enemy regrouped. More shadows poured from caves. More fighters ran screaming down the slopes, dozens, maybe more. And Torres knew the truth. She couldn't hold forever, not without weapons, not without fuel. The question was no longer if the Apache would fall. The question was when. And what would be left of her when it did? What do you do when the sky runs dry? For Torres, the answer came sharp and simple. You keep flying anyway. The Apache trembled under her grip, smoke trailing from the tail like the breath of a dying beast. Alarms blared across her cockpit, red lights, fuel warnings, damage reports. Malik read them all out, steady, calm. But his silence between each line told her the truth. They were out of ammo, almost out of fuel, and one more hit would drop them straight into the valley floor. And still the SEALs were moving. 1 click east, had said, 1 click uphill, carrying a half-dead man boxed in by mountains, enemies chasing at their heels. Her Apache was the only thing holding the flood back. Torres, Malik said, softer now, eyes scanning the failing systems. We can still climb out, get to base, save the bird. Her throat tightened, and leave them to die. They'd understand. No, she said flatly, not tonight. He looked at her, didn't argue, didn't beg, just nodded once. Then we're in it. Her chest burned with quiet gratitude. He didn't need to say it. She knew what he meant. If you fall, I fall. No one leaves alone. The SEALs staggered east, every step a gamble. Briggs half carried the CIA asset, the man pale and limp, blood soaking through makeshift bandages. Dust clung to their faces. Their boots sank into the riverbed trail that barely counted as a path. The sky above them shook with the thunder of rotors, a guardian circling, daring the enemy to follow. But the enemy wasn't afraid anymore. They had numbers. Thermal lit up with new contacts. A wave of fighters pouring from the caves, rushing the fallback route from both ridges. RPGs gleamed on their shoulders. Rounds stitched the dirt around the SEALs as they ducked, fired back, crawled forward. "They're cutting off the exit," Malik said. "Not while I'm here," Torres muttered. Her hands gripped the cyclic. If fire couldn't hold them, fear would. She shoved the Apache down, blades chewing the air so low that dust erupted in plumes. Insurgents staggered, blinded, choking. The helicopter roared above them like a monster, chasing them back into cover. But intimidation only bought seconds. She needed more. Her eyes locked on the ridge, insurgents lying prone, 2 RPGs ready to fire down into the trail where Briggs dragged the asset. They had a clean shot, seconds until they loosed. "No ammo left," Malik reminded her. "Then we make gravity our weapon." She pitched forward, dragging the Apache into a savage dive. Her rotors screamed inches above the rocks. The wash slammed into the insurgents, tearing their balance, blowing the launchers from their hands. One stumbled, slipped, vanished over the cliff. The other fired wild, the rocket streaking harmlessly into empty sky. The SEALs pressed forward, one more trap broken, one more second bought. But Torres knew the truth. She was burning out. Fuel 20%. Hull integrity flashing red. The bird coughed and shuddered like it was begging to stop. "Torres," Malik said again. Not a warning, not an order, just her name. "I know," she whispered. She scanned ahead, visor catching new movement north slope, a truck bouncing hard over the rocks, headlights cutting across the valley, another technical, another heavy gun. Her heart rate spiked, but her hands stayed steady. "Contact north slope fast." "Nothing left," Malik said. "Then I get close." She rolled the Apache down, engines groaning, metal vibrating with every twist. The truck's gunner swung his weapon upward, muzzle flashing, rounds streaked across the cockpit glass. "Brace," Torres shouted. The Apache tore forward, not firing, not dodging, just raw momentum. The downdraft slammed into the truck, tires shredded, the vehicle tipped sideways, flipped, slammed into the rocks, burst into flame. The explosion painted the slope red. The SEALs on the ground froze for a heartbeat, staring. "She just used the bird like a hammer," Briggs muttered. No one answered. They didn't need to. Torres steadied the Apache, smoke trailing, tail dragging. Her breath came sharp. Her hands burned against the controls. She wasn't flying a machine anymore. She was flying her own will. But even will had limits. Fuel 15%. "Inbound," command finally broke through, static cutting their voice. "ETA 10 minutes, hold position until extraction." 10 minutes. 10 minutes in a valley already lost. 10 minutes is a lifetime, Malik said under his breath. "Then we live 11, Torres replied, her voice flat, cold. The SEALs reached the shallow basin that would serve as the secondary LZ. It wasn't safe, not really. A clearing carved by stone, half covered, half exposed. A killing field if the enemy poured in fast enough. And they were coming. Thermal flared with dozens of signatures rushing down the slope, shouting, firing, fearless now. The sound of motorbikes cut the air, more technicals rattling forward, headlights bouncing. The SEALs crouched low, rifles braced. Briggs dragged the asset to the center of the basin. The man groaning, his face white, barked orders, moving men into cover, but his voice cracked with strain. They couldn't hold 10 minutes, not without the sky. Torres saw it, felt it, knew it. Her bird was nearly empty, her weapons were gone, her fuel was bleeding. But she wasn't leaving. She hovered in a wide circle, rotors thundering, casting dust and fear into the enemy ranks. The insurgents slowed, unsure, waiting for the next burst of fire, not knowing the Apache was dry. Malik whispered, "They'll figure it out." "Then we make sure they figure it out too late." She angled the nose, dove again, blades ripping the night. Insurgents scattered, blinded by the storm of dust. Some fired wild into the air, others ducked, shouting, pointing. Every second they hesitated, Every step they stumbled, that was one more heartbeat the SEALs stayed alive. Torres pulled the Apache back into the circle, sweat stinging her eyes. Fuel 12%. Her voice was barely audible. Come on, come on. But the minutes dragged like hours. The enemy regrouped. More shadows poured down, more RPGs raised, more fire streaked the air. And still she flew. Still she held. Not with fire, not with missiles, not with guns. With presence, with defiance, with the sheer, unbreakable weight of refusing to leave. Below, Briggs pressed his shoulder to a rock, rifle glowing hot, sweat mixing with blood. He glanced up once, caught the silhouette of the Apache circling through fire and dust, trailing smoke like a wounded angel. He muttered to himself, not sure anyone could hear. She's not just holding the sky, she is the sky. And in that moment, even broken, even bleeding, Torres believed it. Because she had to. Because if she didn't, they were already dead. How long can a machine run on nothing but will? Torres didn't know, but she was finding out in real time. The Apache circled above the basin like a wounded hawk, smoke trailing from its tail, engines coughing with each push of the throttle, fuel dipped to 10%. Ammunition was gone. Every warning light screamed at her to stop, to land, to give up. But below, 6 men clung to a shallow bowl of stone, protecting a CIA asset too broken to walk, their rifles spitting against a tide that only grew thicker. And she knew one truth: if she left, they died. They're regrouping, Malik said, eyes on the thermal feed, eastern slope RPGs, trucks moving in from the south. Torres steadied her breathing, forcing her pulse into rhythm with the bird. Then we break them one last time. Fuel's critical, Malik reminded. She smirked, though it never touched her eyes. Then we'll burn what's left, buying time. The eastern ridge flashed with muzzle fire. A rocket screamed across the air, slicing under her tail, exploding against the rocks with a shockwave that jolted her chest. The Apache shook, groaned, steadied again under her hands. Still alive, still angry. Contacts north slope moving to flank, Malik called. Copy. She dove low, dragging the rotors just feet above the ridge. Dust and rock erupted in cyclones. The insurgents ducked, blinded, coughing, firing wild into the storm. The SEALs below surged forward, barking orders, Briggs dragging the bleeding asset deeper into the basin. Torres pulled back up, sweat stinging her eyes, jaw locked so tight it hurt. Fuel 8%. Her voice was steady. We hold the sky for 11 minutes, no less. The enemy didn't break. They poured harder, climbing ridges, rushing forward on motorbikes. Headlights bouncing across stone from the south, 2 technicals roared in, mounted guns already spitting fire. Malik's voice cracked sharp. We're out of weapons, nothing left. Then we improvise. She pitched the Apache nose down, throttle wide, engines howling in protest. The rotors screamed overhead as she dragged the bird inches above the lead truck. The downdraft hammered the chassis, tipping the vehicle sideways. Its gunner screamed as the truck rolled, crashed against the rocks, and burst into fire. The second truck swerved to avoid the wreck, slowing just enough for its rifle team to cut its tires, flames swallowing it seconds later. The basin echoed with chaos, fire lit the slopes, dust stung the air. And still there was minutes out. 7 minutes, Malik said, eyes darting between screens. We've got to last 7 more. 7 minutes in hell, 7 minutes was eternity. Torres shoved the Apache forward again, circling low, daring the fighters to fire. And they did. Bullets peppered her hull. A rocket streaked so close it scorched the paint. Another slammed against the far ridge, showering stone across the basin. Her bird coughed, shuddered, whined. Tail integrity failing, Malik warned. Still flying, she whispered. She spotted movement on the ridge. 2 fighters crouched behind boulders, RPGs aimed down at Briggs. He was hauling the asset, his chest heaving, rifle swinging wild between shots. "Not today," Torres muttered. She banked sharp, dropped low, blades howling through the night. She skimmed the rock so close sparks lit the rotors, the wash slamming the fighters off balance. One tumbled backward, the other fired too soon, the rocket streaking harmlessly into the cliff. Briggs never looked up, he didn't have to. The Apache was his shadow. But Torres felt the strain, her arms burned against the cyclic. Every vibration rattled through her bones. She wasn't sure where she ended and the bird began anymore. They were one machine, bleeding together, refusing to die. "Fuel 5%. 5 minutes, Malik said, his voice quieter now. "They'll get it," Torres answered, though she wasn't sure if she believed it. From the ridge, another wave poured forward, dozens, too many, screaming, fearless, firing down into the basin. RPGs raised again, rifles spitting fire. "Torres, we can't." "Shut it," she snapped, "we can." Her voice wasn't loud, it wasn't angry. It was cold, hard, unshakable. And then she dove. The Apache plummeted down the slope, faster, harder, lower than even Malik expected. He cursed as the cliff face rushed up, the ground spinning too fast. She didn't flinch. The rotors screamed, blades slicing air into a storm. The cannon was dry, the missiles gone, but the bird itself was a weapon now. A hammer, a blade, a fury made of steel and will. She skimmed the ridge, wash tearing sandbags from their cover, ripping fighters from their crouch. They scattered, stumbling, blinded, shouting in panic. The SEALs seized the opening, rifles roaring, pushing toward the center of the basin. Briggs nearly collapsed with the asset in his arms, blood streaking his face, sweat dripping into his eyes, but he kept moving. 3 minutes, Malik shouted. Torres ignored him, her eyes locked ahead. Another truck, bouncing toward the ridge line, engine howling, gunner already raising the weapon. She had nothing left, no bullets, no rockets, no tricks. Just momentum. "Hold on," she whispered. The Apache dove straight at the truck, rotors howling, hull shrieking. The gunner opened fire, tracers streaking the air. Bullets sparked against her cockpit, cracked against the glass. She didn't blink. At the last second she yanked hard, the Apache surged up, rotors screaming just feet above the truck. The wash slammed into it with the force of a hurricane. Tires exploded. The chassis tipped. Metal screamed as it flipped sideways, slamming into a boulder, bursting in a fireball. The heat licked her hull, flames roared beneath her. She pulled through the smoke, coughing, eyes burning. "Fuel 3%. Malik's voice was steady, soft. "They're almost here." And then she saw it. The skimming low, banking hard, rotors carving through the night. "Inbound," command barked, voices crackling. 1 minute to touch. 1 minute. The SEALs surged forward, dragging the asset, rifles snapping bursts into the smoke. Briggs stumbled, fell, got up again, hauled him by the shoulder, shoving him toward the clearing. The Apache circled low, blades groaning, smoke trailing in thick streams. "Last pass," Torres whispered. She pitched the bird forward, diving once more. Roaring across the ridge, dust exploded. Fighters scattered, ducking behind rocks, hesitating just long enough. The touchdown. The SEALs sprinted, bellowed orders, Briggs dragging the asset, every man covering another. They rushed into the bird, shouting, gasping, bloodied, alive. Torres circled above, her bird trembling, her fuel lights screaming. "Extraction complete," Malik breathed. But Torres didn't move to climb. She hovered low between thee and the ridges, her Apache a shield of smoke and noise. Bullets sparked against her hull, rockets streaked too close. The bird shook like it wanted to fall apart in her hands. Malik said, almost gentle now, "We can't keep her up." "Just a little longer," she whispered. The lifted, rotors screaming, asset aboard, SEALs shouting inside, it banked west, rising above the basin. Torres kept her Apache low, drawing fire, circling wide, daring every fighter in the valley to aim at her instead. Fuel 1%. The bird coughed, shuddered, pitched. Malik shouted, "I know." She yanked the cyclic, pulling the Apache hard west, trailing smoke and fire. Following this path, the engines groaned, the gauges flatlined. And then at last the bird choked. The rotors slowed, the hull sagged, gravity seized its prize. "Brace!" The Apache dropped. The ground rushed up, rocks tore the skids, sparks erupted, the tail boom snapped, the cockpit bucked, shuddered, slammed into dirt. For a moment, silence. Then dust, then fire, then stillness. Torres sat in the cockpit, breathing hard, blood on her lip, hands still locked around the controls. Malik groaned beside her, alive, bruised, shaken. They had crashed. But not before every man in that basin was gone. Not before they had cleared the sky for the to lift. Not before they had kept their promise. What do you do when the machine finally gives up? Torres sat in silence, her body trembling, fingers locked on controls that no longer answered. The Apache lay broken in the dirt, skids torn, tail crumpled, smoke pouring from the engine bay, sparks hissed against the rocks, warning lights still flickered, like a dying heartbeat. Her helmet pressed heavy against her skull, her ears ringing from the impact. She breathed hard, slow, steady, refusing to let panic win. Beside her, Malik groaned, one hand pressed against his temple. "You good?" she asked, voice hoarse. He blinked, dazed, then gave a slow nod, "Still here." She exhaled, "Then so is the bird." It wasn't true, not really. The Apache was finished, but part of her couldn't let go. It had carried them through the storm. It had burned itself out, keeping 6 men alive. Machines weren't supposed to feel like comrades, but she knew that bird had died fighting beside her. The radio crackled. A familiar voice cut through static. "This is Bravo team. We saw you go down. We're coming for you." Torres froze, her throat tightened. "Negative," she snapped. "Stay in the air. You've got wounded, too hot down here." "Too late's voice barked back. "We don't leave ghosts behind." She closed her eyes for a beat. Goddamn maniacs. Seconds later, rotor thunder split the sky. The circled back, dropping low. 2 ropes whipped into the dust. Shadows slid fast down the lines, seals, weapons ready, boots pounding the earth. Malik smirked, though his face was pale. "Told you they're crazy." Briggs landed beside them, rifle raised, eyes cutting sharp. He glanced at the wrecked Apache, then at her. "You're our ticket out, move." Torres shook her head. "Your bird won't hold long, get the asset home." "We're not leaving you." "Orders," her voice cracked like stone. "Get him out, that's final." Briggs' jaw tightened. "You think we take orders from pilots?" Before she could answer, the pilot cut in through comms. "We're burning hot. 90 seconds on the ground tops." His boots hit dirt next, his face streaked with sweat and blood. He didn't waste time. "Malik, up the rope now." Malik hesitated, looked at Torres. She gave a single nod, "Go." He climbed, slow at first, then faster, his boots vanishing into the bird's belly. Torres lingered. She turned once, her glove brushing the Apache's battered side. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You saved them." Then she grabbed the rope and rose. Gunfire cracked across the valley. Fighters had followed the smoke, dozens, maybe more. Bullets sparked against this fuselage. The pilot shouted, "Taking fire. Brace." Torres swung herself into the cabin. Sparks flew as another round slammed into the bulkhead near Briggs' head. He cursed, returned fire through the open door. "Let's go," bellowed. The surged upward, rotors screaming, steel groaning. They climbed fast, bullets chasing them, tracers streaking through the night. Below, the Apache lay silent, broken but unbowed. Inside the cabin, the air pulsed with adrenaline, sweat, blood, gunpowder. Briggs pressed a hand against the CIA asset's chest, checking shallow breaths. The man was alive, barely. Torres leaned against the wall, helmet off. Eyes closed for a moment. Every nerve in her body hummed. Her bird was gone, her fuel was gone, her fight was not. ETA 5 minutes to clear zone, the pilot called back. 5 minutes, muttered. Might as well be 5 years out here. He was right. Because as the bird banked into open air, a dust column appeared on the horizon, fast, organized. Southeast contacts, Malik shouted from the doorway. 3 technicals on the road, full speed, mounted guns. The pilot cursed under his breath. We're too slow. If they hit the ridge before we clear, we're boxed in. Briggs chambered a fresh round. Then we make sure they don't. Torres pulled herself upright, legs heavy, body screaming. She moved to the side door, gripped the handrail, eyes locked on the ground below. The lead truck roared, gunner standing tall, belt-fed rounds spitting skyward. 2 more followed close behind. She scanned the airframe, no cannon, no missiles, not even a door gun mounted on this bird. They were a flying target. We can't outrun them, Malik said. They'll cut us off. Torres nodded slowly, her pulse slowed, her breathing steadied. Then I'll buy us time. Malik turned. What are you talking about? She looked at him, calm as stone. I'm jumping. For a moment, no one spoke. Briggs' eyes widened. You're what? We pass over that plateau in 30 seconds. Narrow, exposed, but it's above their route. I can stall them, draw fire, delay their climb. You've got no gear, Malik argued, no gun. She ripped open the emergency kit inside. A sidearm, a handful of magazines, a smoke grenade, 2 flares. She stuffed them into her vest. Not much, but enough to scream danger. I just need 5 minutes. Barked, you're not going alone. No, she said firmly. You're not coming. They need shooters on this bird, not heroes on the ground. The pilot's voice crackled. 10 seconds to drop. Malik grabbed her arm. His voice was raw, breaking through the calm. This is suicide. She met his eyes, steady, unblinking. No, this is the cost. Then she was gone. She dropped fast, boots slamming against the dusty plateau with a jarring thud, rolled, sprang up, sidearm in hand, lungs burning. That didn't slow. It vanished over the ridge, carrying the team, the asset, the fight she had already given everything to protect. Alone now. Torres turned to face the dust cloud below. 3 technicals, roaring forward, gunners shouting, rifles raised. She lit a flare, threw it high. Its red streak burned against the night. The first truck slowed, confused. A second later, its gunner opened fire. Bullets tore into the ridge, sparking rock. Dust flew around her. She ducked behind a boulder, heart pounding, fired 3 rounds, not to kill, just to remind them she was there. The lead truck veered right, gunning harder, trying to angle past. The delay was enough. Above, the gain distance. Inside, barked into comms. She's still on the ground. If we turn back, we lose the window. The pilot snapped. We leave or we all burn. Briggs clenched his jaw, loading another mag. We don't make it out without her. Back on the ridge, Torres popped the smoke grenade, kicked it down the slope. Thick red vapor poured over the rocks, swallowing the path. The gunners hesitated, firing blind but not for long. One fighter leapt from a truck, climbing fast on foot, rifle slung, blade glinting. His boots scraped against the rock as he crept closer, eyes searching the smoke. Torres crouched behind her cover, breathing shallow, pistol tight in her grip. Her pulse hammered, her thoughts spun. I should be dead already. My bird should be my coffin, but I'm still here, so I fight. The fighter stepped past her cover. She rose in silence, slammed the butt of the pistol into his knee, heard the crack, drove her elbow into his temple. He crumpled like a sack of sand. Another shout from below, more climbing, more coming. She couldn't win this fight, not really, not for long, but she didn't need to. She just needed to hold. And then salvation. The sound came first, dull at the edges, then sharp, a roar, thunder splitting the valley. 2 shadows streaked overhead, low and furious, A-10 warthogs. Their cannons lit the night. shells tearing trenches across the earth. One truck exploded in a fireball, another split apart under the barrage. The third tried to turn, but a missile cut it in half. The ridge shook, dust swallowed the air. The enemy scattered, shouts turned to screams, then silence. Her radio crackled. Airstrike complete, enemies neutralized, confirmed friendly on the ground. Torres let out a long, shaky laugh. Exhausted, broken, alive. She keyed her mic, still here for now. Within minutes, another cut across the horizon, ropes dropped, dust kicked high. And at the edge of the platform, a hand reached down, Malik. She gripped it, hauled herself into the bird, collapsed against the floor. Gave her a look, not a smile, not a word, just respect. Briggs handed her a water bottle. She drank deep, hands still trembling. The lifted again, turning west. No enemies followed, no fire chased, only the hum of rotors and the quiet exhale of men who'd seen the impossible and survived it. For now, that was enough. How do you walk back into a world that feels like it kept moving without you? When the touched down at just after dawn, Torres felt it immediately, the disconnect. The base buzzed with its own rhythm. Humvees rumbling, mechanics shouting, helicopters circling overhead like nothing had happened to the rest of the world. This was just another morning in Afghanistan. But to her, everything had changed. She stepped off last, boots dragging through the dust, helmet under her arm, her left leg stiff from the crash. Her flight suit was stained with dirt, soot, and blood, not all of it hers. No one spoke, yet every eye followed her across the tarmac. The SEALs disembarked ahead, Briggs carrying the CIA asset with 2 medics already swarming him. The man was alive, but only barely. The others walked behind, silent, each face drawn with exhaustion and something heavier. Awe, maybe, or disbelief. But the base didn't stop. The noise swallowed them. The world moved on. Torres moved too, step by step toward the inevitable. The briefing room was colder than the air outside. 3 senior officers stood behind a long table, their faces unreadable. A CIA representative sat off to the side, his suit sharp even in the dust of a war zone. A military investigator waited beside him, files stacked like weapons. Torres and Malik entered together. Neither saluted, neither spoke. The lead officer at the temples cleared his throat. "Captain Torres, you disobeyed a direct stand-down order from Central Command." "Yes, sir," her voice was calm. "Your Apache was red-lined, fuel critical, hull compromised, no air-to-air cover, and still you continued offensive maneuvers." "Yes, sir." "Why?" She didn't flinch, because the SEALs were going to die. The room fell silent. The CIA rep adjusted his glasses, his voice smoother. "You saved one of our key field assets. He carried intelligence on an arms pipeline. Had he died, we would have lost months of work." The investigator snapped back. "You abandoned your airframe mid-extraction to engage hostiles with no ground support. That was outside mission parameters." "I delayed them long enough to let the reach safe airspace. That was the mission," she replied evenly. "No," the investigator's voice sharpened. "Your mission was air support, not solo ground engagement." Malik leaned forward, eyes hard. "She didn't go rogue, she bought time. Time command couldn't provide. You were 20 minutes late." The silence grew heavier. Finally, the senior officer raised a hand. "Enough. She may have broken the book, but she saved the chapter. We'll handle disciplinary measures later." His gaze fixed on her. "Captain Torres, you're grounded pending review. Hand over your flight keys." Her breath caught. "My flight keys." "Standard until the board meets 3 days." Malik shifted beside her, ready to argue, but she held up a hand. No, this wasn't his fight. She reached into her pocket, pulled the heavy keys free. The sound of them striking the table echoed like finality. "Understood, sir." She turned, walked out without another word. Outside, the sun hit hard against her face, burning, blinding. The base kept moving, Humvees rolling past. pilots prepping birds, mechanics cursing at stubborn engines. But for her, everything had gone quiet, too quiet. Malik caught up with her near the barracks. "You all right?" She shrugged. "I did what I had to do, that's all." He studied her, then pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "Something came in while we were getting chewed out, from the SEAL commander." She frowned, unfolded it. The handwriting was rough, deliberate. "Your actions saved every life on the ground that night. I've seen good pilots, brave ones and foolish ones. You weren't any of those. You were necessary, whatever they decide. We know who cleared the valley that night. Simplify." Her jaw clenched tight. She blinked once, slow. Malik's voice was quiet. "That Marine doesn't waste words." "No," she said, "neither do I." That night the pilot bar was nearly empty. A couple of crews nursed beers. A radio tech fiddled with static. An exhausted cook flipped burgers in the back. Torres sat alone at a corner table, Boots on the chair across from her, nursing a black coffee. Briggs walked in, a fresh bandage across his cheek. He made a line straight to her table, sat without asking. "You jumped off a chopper with a sidearm and smoke," he said. She nodded, sipping her coffee. "I've made worse decisions." He set his hand flat on the table. "You didn't just save us, you gave us back something we don't get often, hope." She looked away, eyes distant. "Doesn't count for much in a boardroom." Briggs smirked, but his eyes carried weight. "That's because you don't know what's coming." Before she could answer, the door opened. Commander stepped in, his uniform dusty, his jaw tight. Behind him came the base co. and a man in civilian clothes, suit crisp, eyes sharp. They headed straight for her table. Torres didn't rise, she waited. The co didn't waste time. "Captain Torres, your actions during the ambush have been reviewed." Her chest tensed. She braced herself for the axe. But then the Pentagon man spoke. His voice carried calm authority. "We're not just here to confirm your grounding." Her breath caught. He continued, "We're here to offer you command." For the first time in hours, she blinked hard. "Say again." "We're assigning a new rapid response gunship unit. Elite pilot selection. No politics, no red tape. You'll have final authority on your missions." She stared at him, words frozen on her tongue. The man leaned forward slightly. "We need someone who doesn't follow rules. We need someone who knows when rules get people killed." Silence stretched across the room. "And what if I say no?" she asked finally. Answered for him, his voice firm. "Then we'll know you finally lost that fire, and I don't believe that for a second." She looked around the table. Malik stood in the back, giving the smallest nod. Briggs raised his coffee cup. Torres stood slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. Her voice was low, steady. "Where's the paperwork?" The co smiled. "Thought you never ask." Outside, the desert night shimmered under the floodlights in the hangar. A new bird crouched in shadow. An Apache AH-64E, black-painted, bristling with upgrades, extended fuel tanks, enhanced avionics, double the firepower. Its name painted discreetly below the cockpit. Revenant 1. Torres stood at its nose, helmet under her arm, staring up at the machine. 2 months had passed since the ambush, but already the story was legend. Pilots whispered it in ready rooms. Operators repeated it on tarmacs. An Apache that refused to leave. A woman who fought on fumes. This wasn't just a machine, it was a message. Inside, her new crew gathered. Malik, still her co-pilot, a munitions specialist from the 160th, a radar savant with a knack for bending air traffic like shadows. Torres tightened her grip on the helmet. She wasn't grounded anymore. She was in command. And for the first time in years, the sky didn't feel borrowed. It felt hers. What happens when victory tastes like poison? 2 months after the ambush, Torres stood in the hangar beside her new bird. Revenant 1 crouched in the shadows like a predator, black-painted, bristling with firepower. Her name was etched beneath the cockpit window, a whisper made steel. It should have felt like triumph, a new unit, a hand-picked crew, authority that most pilots only dreamed about. But Torres didn't celebrate. She never had. "Launch window in 20, Malik called from across the hangar, flipping through a checklist with his usual calm, checked ordnance, running his palm along the racks of Hellfires, while muttered to himself about radar signatures and signal ghosts. Torres said nothing. She stared at the desert beyond the hangar doors, at the endless horizon, and felt only the weight of it. Tonight's mission was surgical. Intercept an arms deal in Province, the target. A rogue warlord, his convoy was believed to be protected by mercenaries, vehicles bristling with stolen tech. It should have been straightforward. But something in her gut whispered otherwise. Revenant One lifted from the base in silence. The desert swallowed them. They skimmed low, the ground rushing beneath at breakneck speed. "Contact in 90 seconds, reported. Torres dropped her visor, eyes locking on the digital feed. The abandoned school compound rose from the sand, trucks surrounding its cracked walls. Guards smoked and laughed, oblivious to the death streaking toward them. "Thermal scan," she ordered. Malik adjusted. 2 on the roof, 6 in the courtyard, 2 in the hall, hostage inside. Her jaw clenched. Copy, no margin for error, arming lasers. She exhaled. Let's remind them who owns the sky. The first Hellfire ripped through the night. It smashed into the courtyard, scattering bodies like dust. The second collapsed a watchtower. Chaos erupted. Mercenaries scrambled, firing RPGs blind. Revenant One rolled left, dodging debris, countermeasures bursting in streaks of white. "S vehicle is moving," shouted. "Rear exit black SUV." "Target locked." Malik's voice was clipped. "Fire." The missile streaked. For a moment certainty, then a white flash, a burst of static. The Hellfire veered off course, exploding harmlessly against the sand. "What the hell?" ECM growled. "They've got jammers, high-grade, not militia scrap. Someone gave them toys." Torres swore under her breath, switched to manual chain gun. She rolled the Apache low, chasing the SUV into the canyon road. The 30 spat fire, sparks flying as rounds tore the bumper. Still, the vehicle swerved, weaving, refusing to die. Then came the voice. Static first, then clear, mocking, broadcast straight into their comms. "Still alive, Apache. I owe you 4 graves, come and earn yours." Torres blinked, her grip tightening. He was taunting her. "Broadcasting on open channel," Malik muttered. "Let him," she said coldly. "He just signed his warrant." The SUV tore into the canyon, too narrow for missiles, too risky for a wide gun run. "Set me for slope descent," Torres ordered. "You'll expose us." "Do it." Malik flipped the controls. She skimmed the canyon edge, hugging the cliff, riding the terrain like it was alive. The SUV jolted over loose rock, swerved, and that was all she needed. She squeezed the trigger. The chain gun roared, rounds slammed the hood. The SUV flipped sideways, crashing into the wall, flames burst skyward. "Multiple heat signatures inside," Malik confirmed, "none moving." Torres didn't breathe, didn't celebrate. She stared down at the wreckage, her voice came low, cold. "1 warlord down." The radio crackled. "Raven team, hostage secure, compound cleared, requesting." Torres let out a long breath. "Airspace clear, you're good to go." The Apache climbed, circling once, flames burned below, silence settled. But in her gut, the whisper lingered. This wasn't over. 3 weeks later, she stood in a Pentagon conference room, polished oak, mirrors for windows, air so still it suffocated. Brass from every agency lined the table, CIA, NSA, Joint Command. No one clapped, no one smiled. General leaned forward. "You violated mission perimeters, risked civilian casualties, took manual slope descent without clearance, but you succeeded." Torres didn't flinch. "I followed the threat, neutralized it, saved the hostage." studied her, then nodded, dismissed. She walked out, calm, unreadable. Malik waited in the hall, arms crossed. "You in trouble?" "No more than usual." "They don't like it when war gets personal," he said. "They're jealous," she replied. He smirked. "You turned a ghost into a legend." Her phone buzzed, a message from only 2 words. "We have a problem." Back in the hangar pulled up encrypted footage. NSA sweep caught this. Drone feed from the op, but it's been tampered with. On screen, Revenant 1 firing early, explosions out of sync, a civilian body marked in red. Torres' blood ran cold. "I never targeted that building, that's fake." Nodded grimly. "Someone spliced the feed before it hit CENTCOM. Someone high up. They want this to look like you butchered a civilian zone." Malik swore. "They're setting her up." Stepped forward, his face pale. "That's not the worst part. The tampered file was routed through a Langley server, CIA shell company." Torres stared at the screen, her voice went flat. "They're not just smearing me, they're scrubbing something bigger." 2 nights later, the truth cracked open wider. A leaked memo, intercepted through a State Department proxy. It revealed what none of them wanted to believe. Had been on the CIA payroll for 5 years. He'd fed intel on Chinese arms shipments, helped disrupt Russian smuggling. He wasn't meant to be eliminated. He was meant to be retrieved. And she had killed him. Or so they wanted it to look. His hands shook as he slid the file across the table. "They'll paint you as rogue vigilante. They'll bury you to keep this quiet." Torres sat in silence, her chest heavy. "Finally," she said. "I didn't go rogue. They let a warlord live because he was useful. He kidnapped an American. He killed SEALs. He used tech no warlord should have had. If that makes me rogue, fine." Malik's voice was steady. "What now?" She looked up, eyes hard as steel. "Now we go public, not media. They'll twist it. We go to the right ears. People who care more about soldiers than secrets." And with those words, she knew she had crossed another line. This fight was no longer about a mission. It was about truth. And the truth was a war of its own. They told her to wear her dress uniform. She refused. When Captain Torres walked into the Senate chamber, she wore her flight suit, scuffed, patched, the fabric still faintly smelling of aviation fuel and desert dust. She wanted them to see her as she was. A soldier, not a pawn polished for display. The room buzzed with cameras, aides whispering, senators straightening their ties. At the far end, the committee sat raised above, their eyes sharp, their voices ready to cut. She stood alone at the witness table, microphone angled toward her, hands steady on the wood. The chairman leaned forward. "Captain Torres, we are here to discuss allegations that you knowingly violated mission protocols, resulting in the death of a CIA asset." The words echoed through the chamber. CIA asset, not warlord, not murderer, asset. Torres didn't flinch, her voice was low, deliberate. "Was not an asset. He was a butcher. He killed Americans. He killed civilians. He kidnapped our own. And he had access to technology no tribal militia could acquire on their own." The chairman arched a brow. "You claim the footage provided is." She met his gaze without hesitation. "Yes, spliced, manipulated to suggest collateral I never caused." "And who would do such a thing, Captain?" Torres paused. She could feel the room leaning closer. She could feel the weight of truth pressing against her ribs. Finally, she said it. "Operation Silk Dagger." Gasps rippled through the chamber, papers shuffled. A senator muttered under his breath. The chairman frowned. "Explain." Torres drew a slow breath. "Silk Dagger is a covert initiative, funded through CIA shell companies, designed to cultivate warlords as assets. They feed intel when it suits us. In return, they're shielded, paid, armed, sometimes even extracted when their usefulness fades." The room erupted, whispers, curses, aides scribbling furiously. Cameras zoomed in on her face. Torres continued, voice unshaken. Wasn't a rogue, he was a partner, but when he crossed the line, when he spilled blood the agency couldn't justify, they needed someone to bury the truth. That someone was me. The CIA representative shifted in his seat, face tight. He started to speak, but the chairman slammed his gavel. Order. Torres didn't blink. I am not here to argue my career. I am here because men died in that valley, because their families will never see them walk through the door again, and because you, all of you, have a choice. You can protect secrets, or you can protect soldiers, but you cannot do both. Her voice cracked just slightly on the last word, just enough to let the room know she was human, not stone. The silence stretched long. Finally, a senator from the back leaned into his mic. Captain Torres, what do you want? She hesitated, then she said softly, the truth, nothing else. The hearing adjourned in chaos. Reporters screamed questions. Flashbulbs burst like gunfire. Torres walked out the side door, unguarded, head high. On the steps, Malik waited. He fell into stride beside her, quiet, steady. You realize they'll come for you now, he said. She smirked faintly. They already have. They might strip your wings. She glanced at him. Wings don't make you fly, choices do. 2 weeks later, the decision came down. Officially, Torres was relieved of flight command pending reassignment. Unofficially, she was blacklisted. Her career had been cut from the inside. The Pentagon washed its hands. The CIA buried its files. The senators moved on to the next scandal. But something unexpected happened. Letters began arriving, dozens, then hundreds, from operators she'd flown cover for, from SEALs, Rangers, Marines, pilots who'd heard her name whispered across airfields, even from widows and fathers of soldiers she'd saved. They didn't talk about medals, or politics, or orders. They just wrote one thing again and again: you didn't leave us. Torres read every letter. She kept them stacked neatly in a footlocker, unopened after the first reading, but never thrown away. One night she sat alone in the hangar, Revenant One silhouetted under dim floodlights. The bird had been reassigned already. To another crew, another war. She couldn't touch it anymore. Couldn't climb into the seat that had once felt like part of her own body. But she wasn't broken. Malik stepped in quietly, carrying a folder. It's not over. She looked up, weary. It is. No, he said firmly. He set the folder down inside. Maps, a patch that wasn't standard issue. Her eyes narrowed. What's this? Unofficial authorization, Malik said. Private, off-book, not Pentagon, not CIA. Operators who don't want politics in their war, they're building a unit, they want you to lead it. She frowned. Another ghost project. He shook his head. No, this time we answer to no one. Revenant 2, our rules, our fight. She stared at the patch, a black raven stitched against desert tan. Something inside her stirred, not pride, not ambition, something quieter. Purpose? Who else knows? She asked softly. Stepped out from the shadows, then Briggs, and finally Commander. One by one they stood there waiting. Torres rose slowly, her hands brushing the folder, her eyes scanning each of them. She thought of the Senate chamber, the lies, the silence, the machine that chewed men whole and called it progress. And she thought of the valley, of the bird that burned itself out for her, of the men who lived because she hadn't listened. Her voice came low, steady. Then we fly, but this time not for them, for us. They nodded. And so Revenant 2 was born. A shadow unit, a promise carved in silence, not bound by medals or politics or the lies of men in suits, bound only by each other. Years later, soldiers whispered of a black Apache that appeared in valleys where no air support was scheduled, turning the tide for men about to be erased. They whispered of a pilot who never signed her name, who never asked for thanks, who vanished as soon as the smoke cleared. They whispered of Revenant 2. No one ever proved it existed. But those who lived knew. And those who died never died alone. because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.